If I were to ask my dad's advice about delivering his eulogy, he would simply say, "Dear boy, please leave them wanting more." Dad would have said it in his own words, that his death was a merciful release. At last, he'd got his wish. He'd been promoted. He had been in God's waiting room in many ways since his stroke in November 2018. Despite this, the news of his death cut deep. And when I got the call from my brother Jono, despite Dad's merciful release, it came unexpectedly. As Archbishop Thomas Becket said before his own death in Canterbury Cathedral, the long-awaited moment is always unexpected when it arrives. When preparing for Dad's eulogy, I asked my youngest daughter what 3 lessons she might remember me by. She didn't hesitate. 1, how to kill a cockroach in a humane way. 2, how to gut a fish. And 3, how to put up a tent. This gave me an idea. What were the 3 lessons I learned from Dad? It's these I want to share with you now. I was in my early 20s when I went home to see him for the weekend. We were in one of his famous camper vans, drinking a pint of old hooky together. "How's life, boyo?" he asked. "Great, thanks, Dad. I have a new girlfriend. She is 10 years older than me and has a 10-month-old baby." There was a long, long pause before Dad said, "I know love may be blind, dear boy, but don't make it stone deaf as well." The lesson I learned was be sensible and do the right thing. Step back, observe and consider before charging in. Dad found it hard to express himself and his love to those closest to him, at least in I love you terms. My life with him felt like a life of 2 distinct halves. The first, up to the age of 30, where I experienced our relationship as adequate. And the second, after 30, which I would describe as rich, fulfilling, interesting, and meaningful. The catalyst came at the age of 30 when my relationship with my father hit new emotional lows after a misunderstanding between us. I judged him for what I felt were a lack of guidance, love, and support. I heard from others how proud he was of me, but found it frustrating that he never seemed to be able to say it to me until one day I realized that I needed to take the initiative. "Dad, there's something I need to tell you," I said, over a cup of coffee, summoning all my courage. "What is it, boyo?" he said. "I love you, Dad." He didn't hesitate for a moment. "I love you too, old boy." And from that moment on, I began to see him with new eyes and became far more accepting, curious, loving, and grateful towards him. I started to get into his world and learned that he did not have a meaningful, intimate, or loving relationship with his father. A rather stuffy, distant Indian Army general he had said goodbye to in 1936 when he was 7, and whom he didn't see again until 1943, when he was 14. I asked him how often he heard from his father. "I would get a letter on my birthday and a letter at Christmas," he said. "What was that like?" I asked. "Like manna from heaven," he said. The lesson I learned here was don't wait. Have the courage of your convictions and take a risk. If I had not done that, I would not be standing here saying what I am saying today. He expressed his love easily through stories, one-liners, jokes, limericks, practical tasks, sharing a slow-cooked shoulder of lamb or drinking a pint of Butcombe ale together. One of his favourite stories was of 2 bulls in a paddock on a hill. Down in the valley below is a field full of nubile heifers. The young one says to the older one, "Let's run down and each do one." "No," says the old boy, "let's walk down and do the lot." The lesson wasn't lost on me. Only fools rush in. Take your time. To me, he was a combination of William Shakespeare, Friar Tuck, and Winston Churchill. Dad seemed to have the ability to mobilize the English language and give it legs, bringing it so vividly and viscerally to life that it became a living, moving, breathing thing of beauty. In the book Conversations with God, which I gave to Dad, the author asks many questions, which I think we all have. One of them is about drinking alcohol. He asks God, is it okay to drink alcohol? And God said, well, that's up to you, but I didn't design your body to consume alcohol. Okay, says the author, what about moderation? Well, moderation is good, says God, but my first answer still stands. I didn't make your body to consume alcohol. Fine, says the author. Let's talk about your son Jesus, shall we? And how he turned water into wine. Oh, come on, God says. He was only human. That was Dad to a T. Human. Interesting, paradoxical, maddening, delightful, and loving. I remember one time he asked me, your birthday's coming up. How little can I give you? And then quietly and unexpectedly deposited a way too generous amount into my bank account, with money that I was sure he didn't have much of. Was my father's life a success? Let me read this definition by Robert Louis Stevenson and judge for yourself. The man is a success who has lived well, laughed often, and loved much, who has gained the respect of intelligent men and the love of children, who has filled his niche and accomplished his task, who leaves the world better than he found it, whether by an improved poppy, a perfect poem, or a rescued soul, who never lacked appreciation of earth's beauty or failed to express it, who looked for the best in others and gave the best he had, whose life was an inspiration, whose memory was a benediction. It is now time to wish Dad farewell. One of my abiding memories of Dad was his passion for steam trains and other noises, which he used to impersonate so beautifully. He would send us to sleep with impressions and stories of those amazing, hissing, belching, shunting beasts that had been so much a part of his childhood in London, Malvern, and Norfolk, as well as Eastern and Southern Africa. In his honour, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes as I do my best to transport you back to those times and invite you to imagine Dad's final train is leaving the station, taking him on the next leg of his journey. Please close your eyes now.